Hello everybody, and welcome to Wise Warrior's Path 2. Today I'm going to be showing you what would be basic Spanish light infantry to light noble infantry. Now you're going to be seeing here, I'm going to be showing you a variety of weapons that could have been used by these soldiers, and as well I'm going to be showing you a little bit of the armor and a little bit of the fighting techniques and the combinations that would have been seen with these sort of soldiers in Iberia. Now this would have ranged from about very early, actually, around the Roman times and probably a little bit before, to as late as the 1500s in Spain and around Spain. And this would have been the Javelin soldier, or the Soldado de las Azconas. And these soldiers would have been mainly seen in Aragon or all over Iberia, but it would be the Catalans, or the people of Aragon, who would be infamous for spreading the name of the Almogávar that caused so much havoc. And if you look up a name called Roger de Flor, you're actually going to see that the Almogávar was actually a menace to the Mediterranean. It was practically unleashed onto the Mediterranean, onto the Byzantium Empire, maybe to protect it. Whatever the motives were back then, it ended up wreaking a lot of havoc, and the only way that these soldiers were defeated was through Greek fire, was through a trap. They were becoming so powerful, they were doing so much conquest, and this was shortly before the conquistadors did their conquest in America. This was shortly before the empire became Spain, or Aragon and Castile joined together and became Spain. And what ended up happening is that they ended up conquering a lot of Europe. They became very powerful. They became the most powerful empire on the planet at that time. And they ruled for quite a bit of time and centuries in Latin America. And if you begin to look at their legacy, it actually started way before the conquistadors and Isabel. It actually started when the Reconquista was becoming complete, and it was soldiers like these ones that I'm going to show you, the Almogávar, that would have done a lot of damage. So let's check it out. So here we're going to start off showing you an Azcona, or just a typical javelin, and you're going to see right here what it looks like and how it's used. You can throw it lightly, quickly, or you can throw it very far and very heavily. Depends on how you want to throw it and how you have trained to throw it. And when it comes to combat, of course, you use combat javelins much more differently than what you use in the Olympics, unless you want to make really far throws, but you got to remember that you got to hit a target or hit a body of men. Now right here I'm going to be showing you a second javelin, which is actually kind of like a spear, or it more resembles like a soliferum. And this javelin right here, as you can see, it's makeshift because I made it. Just like the other javelin, it's also handmade, but this one is something that I specifically made out of basic materials. And it has a counterbalance end right there that you could use sort of like a semi-mace, depending on the kind of material or the kind of reinforcement that you put on these things. And this right here would have been more like the javelin that you would have used for close quarters or more heavily armored infantry, and as well you could use it for defending yourself. It's a little bit more heavy, a little bit more longer, but of course you could have had longer javelins, or javelins just as short as the first one that I showed you, which would have been good for cavalry and stuff like that, and as well light units. But this one would have been a basic size, or you could have had them longer. But I prefer this size right here because you can defend yourself. It's light, and it's still actually heavy enough to do damage, but it's also light and non-cumbersome, and you can use it very well with the buckler shield that I'm going to be showing you very shortly. So here is the buckler shield, and it is made from basic construction material, but it resembles a typical buckler shield. Now buckler shields varied throughout cultures, but they were a very typical shield. Bucklers, or things like bucklers, have always been around. It's basic. It has a round thing, or square, or however you want to make it, and it has a little handle, one single handle. It doesn't strap around your arm. Now we're going to be seeing the sword And this right here would be a typical arming sword. This one's just a little shorter because it got broken, and it's actually, the tip of it is actually what the last javelin was that I showed you that I made. And you can see right there the sword and buckler, and the arming sword, which would have been the knightly sword from 1000 AD to 1500 AD, possibly a little after, and different versions a little bit before and as well after. And the arming sword would have been a perfect sword. It is a perfect sword, and it did a lot of damage throughout the time that it was used. So there's the basic stuff, and we're just going to be showing you a little bit of how these weapons are as well used. So right here you can see that the javelin, or the small spear with the buckler, works very well. There's different ways that you can attack and defend, and as well use your buckler while you do it. You can use it with your hand attached, and you can use it as a single motion to kind of protect your hands and protect your attack, or you can use it individually, and individually is also a very good method. So depending on how you use it. So there's different combos that you can use, especially when you have a little butting end or a little poking end at the end of your spear. There's just different combos that you can use, and the better you get, the more agile and stronger you get with these. Now, when it comes to the basic typical javelin, like you're seeing right here, the little javelin for light infantry, the buckler doesn't really matter, but you can still use it. And I would use it more just for straight up stab, block, stab, block, stab, block in a very quick motion. And when you become very skilled, very comfortable with what you're doing, you're going to be able to, in reality, do a lot of damage with a variety of weapons, depending on how you do it. So here we're going to be picking up the arming sword, and you can see that you can still have the javelin with your shield because it's very small, and you can kind of poke and still block and poke. And this would be more for a clash that has a variety of people, because when you're doing one-on-one, you want to have everything nice and firm, nicely gripped. So right there is just the basic lesson on how you can use these weapons for a javelin, because you got to remember that they're not always depending on their javelins. They got to fight, they got to use their stuff. And the sword that I showed you, of course, is of a later period. They would have used different armors, different swords throughout the periods, but that's pretty basic from what you're seeing. The Almogávar would have had a special kind of cleaving sword, which I'm not presenting here, but still they would have used swords like this as well, because you would have seen armies, large armies. So right here you're seeing the armor, and this is just basic chainmail. The chainmail that I have right here is of course kind of wrecked, but you can see right there the movements of what chainmail can do for your agility. You're still able to move, you're still able to function in it. It offers enough protection. You have a coif right there, or you can have the coif attached to the chainmail, which comes with the chainmail, or you can have it separately. And you can see the agility, how I'm making attacks, how I'm making moves. I'm able to do jumping jacks and a whole bunch of stuff. So of course, once again, my chainmail is a little worn down and wrecked, but it's still able to do its job. So you can see right there, I'm able to make combos, I'm able to make kicks, I'm able to block, I'm able to do exercises in it, I'm able to do what I really need to in order to protect myself, and as well be able to attack. And as well, when it comes to the heat, the chainmail in reality provides very good ventilation, but when it's very cold, you got a lot of metal on you, and as well holes to that metal, so it can be actually very cold depending on how you do it. And chainmail can be very heavy, but the way it's distributed actually makes sense. And also, sometimes people would double layer their chainmail, or put 2 coats of chainmail on, or interweave chainmail where it's thicker, or they add more rings, like places like Japan. But European chainmail was essentially the best, and it's been around since the very beginning. The Celts I was believed to have been the first cultures to have used it or created it. And since then, it's been adopted by almost every single culture that has been connected in the Eurasian or African realms. So right there, you can see that I can hack myself with this stuff. The chainmail will take stabs, will take all sorts of things, will take all sorts of hits. Now, of course, it depends on the hits, but when it comes to cuts, you may get hurt. It's just like the typical body armor that you see today. You still may break a couple of bones, but at least it won't make you bleed out to death. But there's still the possibility of death or serious injury. So we are going to actually now get to the beginning of the video, which in reality I put the last of the video because that's when I presented the stuff, and I thought that it was important that I put that stuff in the beginning. But here is actually the beginning of the training. Now here's what a soldier would have done. He would have taken his stuff out, taken all of his gear, and just would have trained with it, just like a boxer, shadow boxes and stuff like that. And a soldier would have had to have done this regularly to keep his muscles strong, to keep his endurance up, to keep all of his stuff top notch. And you can see right there the effort that is being put into this. And it's not really much, but as the soldier begins to train, it begins to wear down on him, the weight of this stuff begins to wear down on him, it actually makes him very tired. And you're going to see that I'm going to start to get much more faster, much more confident with my moves, as I'm just kind of breaking in my armor, kind of getting used to it that day. And I'm going to start getting much more faster, but I'm also going to start getting tired. But as I keep doing it, I start getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And there's going to be a certain point where you get just a little bit tired, but you're still going to be able to fight through it. So you can see how I'm doing my moves. I use the javelin, and then it resorts to the spear. You can see right there, I use the spear. Because I don't need to exactly pull out my sword just yet. I'm still pretty good with the stabbing and the blocking, especially if I am in a group of other men that are assisting me, or we're going together as a body of men trying to push an enemy back. It's good to use the spear. It's long ranged, and as well you're able to use it very quickly, and it saves your sword, and your sword sometimes needs quite a bit of space. A spear is just straightforward, it's straight to the point. Now we're going to use the sword. And you can see right here, this is now the typical sword and buckler. This is the stuff of legend right here. This is the stuff that everybody talks about. The sword and buckler is, I'm going to say that it is one of the most effective units that you could have on a battlefield that doesn't have gunpowder. And you can see right there, you can attack as a single motion where you protect your hands, or you can do what I like to do and just fight with the buckler and the sword individually from each other, where you block and you attack and you can hit. I just like to do that rather than just protecting my hands. It just depends on the situation, because you gotta remember that attacks can be used at different moments. And stabbing is very good with the arming sword, as you can see, very effective. And you can block as you hit, block as you hit. It's very effective, surprisingly. People use all these fancy moves, but then they go against a sword and a buckler, and they see how effective just a block and a hit is. Block and a hit, block and a hit, especially when it comes to stabs or coordinated cuts with thrusts. So you can see right there, very effective. I was starting to get tired, but now I'm starting to get used to it. I train like this enough, so I don't really need water either. I don't need to be drinking water every 5 minutes. I can just continue to do it. And as I stop, I watch my enemy, I think, I wait for my men to come up. Those are like little 2-minute breaks or little 5-second breaks. And you can see right there that I try the old school salute. It's like the Roman salute. It's just kind of like a respect to the enemy or an entry to battle. So I find that the combo of chainmail and just a good cloth or a good gambeson is something that is very good for protection, very good for a lot of blows, a lot of hits, especially when you're very busy and you're very agile. You're able to coordinate a lot of hits, you're able to take a lot of hits, especially when you're training in your armor. You're almost able to deflect hits much more better than not training with your armor. If you just train and never use your armor, I would say that you should train with your armor always, especially if it's the armor that you're going to use in combat, or how they would have done. And that's how they would have done it. They would have trained with heavier swords like the Romans would have done, especially in Iberia, because they would have used a lot of the tactics that the Romans would have had. Very unique culture for Iberia, what would have became Portugal and Spain, and what was much of the Moorish occupation for like a very long time, almost 800 years. And in that time there was a Reconquista that was fought, which means reconquest, and there was a lot of work, a lot of damage, a lot of invention, creation, and struggle to make these men. So when I train, which these are like my ancestors as well as Germans and whatever may connect to Latin America, but mainly that's what makes up my ancestorship, is the German and the Spanish, mainly the Spanish. And I like to think about the effort and commitment that they put into their battle, into their training. So that's kind of what motivates me a little bit, and also I'm a little bit self-motivated. So just the more I train, the more fun I have. I don't have to train with anyone, I don't have to really think about it. I just go out there, I get stronger. I find that I'm a little weak in this, so I just try to master it, try to get stronger. And you can see that I switch my hands all the time. I use two hands, and the reason for that is because I want to be good with both hands. In case one hand ever gets injured, I got two hands, and I'm able to use two weapons at once if I really need to, if I don't have a shield. So you can see right there the spears, the javelin, or I would say that both of these are javelins, but just this one I can use more like a spear. And you can see the speed that I use. It's not just basic thrust like 300 or Sparta. No, these movements are very specific. That's why you see that a poleaxe or a halberdier would have been a very good unit, very good soldier. See, I kind of use my spear in a very coordinated manner. It's very hard to get by, especially when you're moving very fast. You're agile, you're well armored but light, you're consistent, you're tedious against your enemy. It's very hard for your enemy to get by your defenses and your attacks, and essentially you will win, especially when you have like-minded soldiers. And that's why the Almogávar was very effective, very effective. They technically were not defeated until they were in foreign lands. After they conquested for a very long time, they were getting depleted. They were defeated through extreme measures. If you look at Roger de Flor, if you look at the Almogávar and the legacy that they had in the Byzantium Empire, it was an extreme legacy. These people technically were not defeated. They were like the first conquistadors of Europe. And it was intense because it was just like kind of like a rebel-like band that was sent there. It was professional. But these men, they were very particular if you study these men, Almogávar. So my guy would have looked more like a basic infantry, basic soldier, kind of like a knight in a way, or like a noble, or like a man with a little bit better status. My guy is definitely not a peasant. You can see by the sword, you can see by the armor, you can see almost by the clothes as well, how he has his style, how he uses his weapons. You can see the area that I have right here. Obviously it's my area, and I have some colors that I put on there to just kind of make it look more pretty, make it look less kind of mundane and more cool. But this right here is just basically what they would have done. They would have had their little area, little room, or right by their little castle, or by their little hut, or their little home, and they would have had a little wall just like this. Probably would have had a shield hanging up just like that. Would have had some stuff that they would have been able to kind of step on and climb on and move around and train with. Probably certain kind of weights and systems that they would have used to condition themselves. So of course a lot of this stuff I'm just throwing in, but I just think about it, and as I study the history books, that's exactly what they would have done. So I hope that you guys enjoyed my video, and I apologize if I made any mistakes with my grammar or I just kind of ranted too much on something, but I believe that this was kind of complete information of as well the basic European infantry, maybe apart from the javelin in certain areas, or the spear. Maybe the spear, yeah, maybe different kind of versions of lance, different kind of shields, just different kinds of armors maybe. The soldier that I showed you right here, it's very basic, very common to Europe, especially with the armor and the kind of getup that he has, the gloves and everything. But for Spain, this would have been ideal. Even a noble, a very good king, would have wanted to use armor like this in the heat, and as well for agility, because if you look at the Spanish soldiers, they would have been very good for agility, or the Iberians or the Celts. There's a very big rich history, and as I begin to show you more videos and I talk during my videos, I'm going to be showing you just a lot of what these people were, a lot of the stuff that people don't know about the Iberians. So I thank you for watching my video once again, and that was the soldier, the Almogávar, or just the basic Spanish infantry or basic infantry of Europe, with the knightly sword, a buckler, a javelin, and a javelin spear-like thing, and chainmail, and just the little bit of skill that I have that I was able to present to you. So until next time, please subscribe, keep updated to the videos that I'm going to be showing you for the future, and take care. God bless you.